Okay, today I only have about an hour before I have to go, but I really want to get some progress on some things with emitting spheres to which I apply spherical harmonics. So I'm going to start with loading up Visual Studio Code and recall. I've got my, let's do Blender Start. I'm pretty sure what this is going to do, well, ideally, is it's going to pop up a Blender that I'll be able to reload the add-ons for. This is where I'm going to go for getting a couple of the, oh my. Yep, alright. Today I'm listening to some kleptones. Trying not to, what? I have two windows open. That's not great. Okay, so I've got this operators. So let's see. Now again, the add-on here is not really the point. Let's get started with, let's add in UV sphere. I'm going to go over to geometry nodes. Let's do our shade smooth. So now it's nice and smooth, but because I want to be able to have, I want to subdivide my surface here so that I can have more vertices to offset. Okay. So I don't think this is the set I wanted to listen to. Yeah, this is the set. There we go. Okay, so now the idea that I have in my head is to have sort of a roiling surface. So let's get that going here. Do a noise texture. And then here, this noise texture, make it 40. This is really just to set the scale, or to set up what I want to do. I'm eventually going to come back and then change this noise texture to be something different. Let's divide this by 24. That'll be our W. Okay. We'll read our position here, and then we are going to apply this to our geometry. So we've got our item here. This is our sphere. So we will read our position. We will take our red position, and then we're going to offset it so by whatever this is. So I can't remember how the scale influences all this stuff, but it's normalized. So we will map range. The value will be our factor. We will map it from 0 to 1 to 0.95, 1.05. Okay, and now we will scale the vector attribute. So we've got our vector math, read our position in here. We will scale that to that. And now up here, set position. So now we've got our, everything is offset like that. I'm also going to store an attribute here. this will be our factor value, and then we will say noise val. So this is going to go in on our geometry. Let's toss it here. And so now we've got our noise value here. So you see this is oddly close to 0.5 everywhere that I'm seeing. But I guess that's, well, can't deal with that just now. I mean, honestly, it's a hard day to deal with just about anything, to be honest. As I said, to be honest, too many times. Excuse me. One of those days. All right. So now we've got this. Let's go ahead and we can play this, and we'll see it shift over time, although not very smoothly. I wonder why it's so chunky like that. What happens if I get rid of this? Nope. Huh. That's interesting. It's probably... you know what? I have no idea why it's going so slow, whereas in the past it's gone reasonably quickly for me. Let's try this. Time. Real chunky, high frames per second. Maybe it's because it's running in debug mode, or low frames per second. Anyhow, I'm doing a lot with this, so I guess it's fine. We can just do whatever. All right, now let's go on to the materials, because goodness knows that's gonna be nice and responsive and fast. Set material. Okay, we'll set it to that, but I'm gonna rename that material. Let's go on into shading. Okay. I'm going to change this name, noisy bumps. All right. So our base color here, we will read an attribute, noise val. It's going to be on the geometry. And then what we'll do is we will color ramp. So let's take our factor, feed it in there, and do that color, and now you can see we are getting that, and it is correlated with our position and our bump size. So let's try something here. Let's try making the low values alpha of 0. I wonder what that... Nope, didn't do anything. All right, so let's go back here. We'll set alpha value 1. And now if we render it, you know, I wish I knew the right... There we go. That's shift and middle click seems to change the position of the object. There we go. All right, so now if I go back into geometry nodes and I view it, let's take a look and see what it looks like. If it looks like the color and the noise are correlated. Wow, real slow. And it doesn't seem to be changing. Let's see. Oh. There we go. All right, now this should be slow too. does look correlated, so that's nice. Okay. All right. Maybe if I turn that off, it'll be faster. Oh, you know what? Maybe I don't need as high a level of mesh. It really doesn't seem to affect it very much. Frames per second does not go up that precipitously. Turning off smoothing, nope. All right, let me reset this. How do I reset this to default values? There we go. 40, normalize. Oh, look at that if I don't normalize it. That looks kind of cool. Looks like when it hits a certain threshold, it gets up. Okay. That's odd. Very slow there too. Okay. Let's go on back to our material. Let's change up the colors a little bit. Let's have a slower ramp. And then let's also set this to be something a little more eye-catching. Maybe if I, let's go back here, scripting, no, not scripting, geometry nodes. Let's actually amplify this a little bit. Instead of minus 0.95, we'll do 0.9. Yeah. Maybe I don't need the vector there. Nope, that didn't really change anything. Okay, so I've got this thing. It is sort of moving around and roiling. It's not exactly what I'm hoping to get as an end result, but see, let me amplify this as 1.1 to 1.25. So this should, yeah. You know what? Let me make this even bigger. Yeah. So we've got this orbits moving all around. All right, so now let's think about how can we emit copies of this. I think the easiest way to do this would be to have this single noise texture get fed in, and then, or rather we access the same noise texture. Let me reset all this to the default value. Okay, that's kind of cool. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to emit this at certain fixed values. And really what that means is having a new sphere that's basically identical at certain keyframes. So I wonder what happens if I take this and I output that. Interesting. So those are points now. Let's try instance, no. Face. Okay. So let's try this instead. Let's take all of this. This will output that geometry, and it will input at our W coordinate. Okay. So let's rename this now. This will be a roiling sphere. So I used to listen to this. This came out 2022. And that year, I had injured myself and I couldn't run for a while. And then I got back on running when we went on vacation down to Lake of Egypt. There's a trail down there. And I remember really catching up on my running. I was able to go back up, and I ran my first over 10 miler listening to this that July. It my first over 10 miler in months since I'd been injured. It was really wonderful. So whenever I think of this, I think about that particular trail. It's called like Tunnel Hill or something. All right, so this sphere. So now let's add a new item. Let's add a new sphere. And this one is actually, let's get rid of this one for now. This one will be, let's rename it. All right, let's get rid of that. Points. Let's come up with, let's say 30 or so points. And so here, let's go on into that one. And let's have this take we'll also have it take a scale. So it's going to create a UV sphere. So let's go back to our emissions. Let's edit geometry nodes. Instances on points. For each element, for each point, we do a roiling sphere. Now let's input geometry. Has no elements in the iteration domain. Oh. So in theory, what this should do is it should create a ton of them. So let's see. 238,000 instances. Okay. All right. So for each element, scale instances. Set scale. Transform geometry. And we are going to, and here, let's drop this down to 5 points. So we will divide index by count, domain size, geometry, point, I guess point count. We'll divide our point count, or we'll divide 1 by our point count in order to get, we'll divide our index by point count. Okay, that will be our W value. So if I do this, all of a sudden they're all overlapping. Nice. Okay, so now we will scale them by our index factor. And so now, yeah, they're all nested. And so we should be able now to if I do this right, let's see, if I go back to wireframe, okay, let's multiply. Okay, so now I am able to see them all. I think I actually want index plus 1 times 10. So now I should be able to see all of them. So now they're separated out and all that. So the innermost one will continue roiling. So now, okay, let me think back on this. Let's go back over to our shading. we've got our noisy bumps. Let me just drop the alpha value way down. So it doesn't quite look the way I'd expect it to because it's doing this principled BSDF thing. I don't actually need something that sophisticated. So let's try emission. Okay. And now let's see. Nope, that's not doing it. I think maybe it's just not going to work if we don't have, if there's more than one visible at a time. So let's get rid of my changes here. So let's go back here to my geometry nodes. Let's see what happens if I go down to 2 points. And this will be times 50. I actually want, let's clamp this. No, let's maximum it with 1. Get rid of this, take our index, put it in there, multiply it by 50, that value, and then scale. Okay. So now we should have 2 that are visible. Is 50 too high? Let's try 20. That's so odd. What am I misunderstanding about this? We've got 2 points. There's 1, 2, 3. Or there's 1, 2. Oh, there's 1 at the very center. Okay. And now we want the innermost one to be still roiling. So here, switch. So we will set W here. Sorry. We will set this to be a float. If it's true, it'll be frame. Okay. And so that will be our W. No, I don't want that. If it's false, put that. If it's true, it'll be frame divided by whatever. The output gets put into W. Now, yeah, that can still stay the same. And so now we need the switch to be equals, let's see, math. I think this has an equals in it. Comparison. Value, that'll be index, value 0, epsilon 0.1, nope, that value doesn't go in there, that goes in there, that goes there, that goes there, and then this is index. Okay, so now clearly I've done something wrong, but it should be supplying a W. Oh, and where am I getting an error? No, I'm not seeing any errors. All right, let's try stretching this all out so that I can see it. So the index, if the index is equal to um, if the index is equal to 0, then it outputs 0. Otherwise, it outputs 1 plus the index. But it shouldn't just output 0, it should output, yeah, there we go. So that supplies the output to W. That geometry now goes there. Okay, so now we are getting at the very center. Sphere still continuing. Okay, so now for the scale, we actually want to multiply by frame divided by 24. No, we want to clamp it so that they continue to expand. But we want to maximum it with 1, so it won't be less than 0. So this is getting a little bit sticky because we want to make sure that we're doing all of this right. And, okay. How much do we want them to expand? Well, we don't want them to go below a scale of 1. So what we can do is we will take our factor, let me create a new geometry node because I'm getting a little bit confused here. Let's see, how do I make a new one? We want to compute our scale factor. Our scale factor here is going to be our starting at 1, so we can't go below 1. Our frame divided by 24, so the number of seconds, minus our index. Yeah. So frame divided by 24. This is our noise index for each sphere. So we actually want this to be we'll clamp this in a minute. So we want our scale to be our frame. Our seconds minus our index value. So math, subtract, and this will actually, we'll just consolidate them here, frame divided by 24, minus our index value. And then we'll clamp it. No. We want to do our math. We want the maximum of that and 0. So let's see. All right. Oh, I'm way zoomed out. Okay, so this is starting to look kind of like what I'm looking for. Now, is there a way to set... All right. So we want to have the scale... We want it to be a little bit bigger, so let's try multiplying this. Okay, so every second or so we see a new one come out. Oh, you know what I'm realizing? The outermost one is changing when I actually wanted it to be the innermost one. All right, so how do we... Oh, shoot. uh, no, you know what? I think it's easier if instead we have a separate roiling sphere at the very center that we manage independently. So let's get rid of that. We will just output the W. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Nope, still not quite looking what I'm looking for. So, gotta keep thinking through how to do this. I wonder if it's possible to, let's go back into our shading. Let's see if I can make this, let's get rid of this emission. We'll go back to color from that. Let's see what it looks like if I actually render it.